All right, let's jump right in. Today we're looking at a pretty dramatic shift that's happening in one of Florida's key housing markets. We've got some fresh data that paints a really interesting picture, one that's kind of bucking the trend for the rest of the state. So let's break down what it all means, whether you're thinking about buying or selling.
So, this is the big question, right? Is the Florida housing boom finally over? I mean, for years, Florida real estate has been just this red-hot seller's game. But is that tide finally turning? Well, it really depends on where you're looking.
Because you see, while a lot of markets are still pretty competitive, the Cape Coral metro area, wow, it's becoming a major outlier. Maybe it's a building boom after the hurricane, maybe it's rising insurance costs, whatever the reason, the balance of power there is changing fast. And the data? It's undeniable. Okay, so here's the headline. We're not just talking about a little cool down here. We're talking about a clear, official shift into a buyer's market. For the first time in a very long time, buyers in Cape Coral are the ones in the driver's seat. So how did this happen? Well, to really get it, we're going to look at the three most important signals in any housing market. First, how long it takes to actually sell a home. Second, how many homes are for sale. And third, what's happening with the prices. Simple as that. Time, inventory, and price.
First up is time. One of the clearest signs that a market is shifting is when those for sale signs just start staying up a lot longer. We call this metric days on market, and in Cape Coral, it is telling a heck of a story.
119 days. Just let that number sink in for a second. That is the median time a home in the Cape Coral area sits on the market before it sells. We're not talking about a few extra weeks here. We are talking about nearly 4 full months from the day it's listed to the day it closes. Now, what's really interesting is when you put that 119-day figure into context. Look at this. It just towers over Florida's statewide median of 98 days. And it's way higher than the national average, which is sitting at just 77 days. This isn't just a little local slowdown. This is a huge departure from the norm. Let me put it another way. A typical house in Cape Coral takes a month and a half longer to sell than the average home in the entire country. And you can bet that all that extra time puts a ton of pressure on sellers, which in turn opens up some real opportunities for buyers. So the natural question is, why are these homes sitting for so long? Well, that brings us right to our second piece of evidence: inventory. It's simple, really. When buyers have more houses to choose from, they can afford to take their time. And in Cape Coral right now, they have choices in abundance. Now, to measure this, we use a great little metric called months of supply. It's a really simple but powerful idea. Basically, it asks, if no new homes were listed for sale, how long would it take to sell every single home that's currently on the market? And the key takeaway is this: the higher that number, the more power the buyers have. And in the Cape Coral metro area, that number is 4.6 months. Now, just for some context, a market is usually considered balanced, not favoring buyers or sellers, at around 5 to 6 months of supply. So while we're not talking about a total market crash, 4.6 is a big cushion of inventory that's telling us pretty clearly that supply is outpacing demand. And, just like before, the comparison really tells the story. Cape Coral's supply is nearly 70% higher than the national level and 40% higher than Florida's overall market. That gap, that is what's giving buyers so much leverage.
So what happens when homes are sitting on the market longer and buyers have a ton of options to choose from? Well, something's got to give, and that something is almost always the price. Which brings us to our third and final signal: the growing pressure on the price tag.
Just look at this chart. More than a third of all the homes for sale in Cape Coral, we're talking almost 37%, have had a price cut. Think about that. Sellers are actively slashing their asking prices just to get some attention in a very crowded market. I mean, that is the definition of a buyer's market right there. But here's where it gets really interesting: a little nuance. Check out these numbers. While the overall median list price in Cape Coral is actually lower than the Florida state median, the price per square foot is almost identical. Now, what does that suggest? It suggests the market dynamics are really specific to the type of homes available there, not just some blanket across-the-board discount.
Okay, so we've looked at the time, the inventory, the price. We've looked at all the data. Now let's get to the important part. What does this all mean for you? What should you do if you're thinking about buying or selling a house in the Cape Coral area right now?
Okay, for buyers, the message could not be clearer. You have time. Don't feel rushed. With so many choices and a lot less competition, negotiation is back on the table in a big way.
Now for sellers, this is a bit of a reality check. You absolutely have to price your home correctly from day one. You've got to make it stand out from the competition. And most importantly, you need to be patient. It's going to take longer, and patience is your best friend.
You know, the story of Cape Coral is such a powerful reminder that all real estate is local. It just goes to show you that even within a super hot state like Florida, you can have these pockets, these distinct markets that have completely different rules. And that leaves us with one final question to think about. As some of these hot markets begin to cool, where will the next hot spots pop up? Where will the new opportunities be found?